The whole session will be recorded. Hello, everyone. I thought Dexter is a moderator of the session. Could you begin the session, please?
Okay. So we would like to welcome everyone to this paid chat conversation, and particularly focusing on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And here with us today are the Franciscan friars from the Philippine province of San Pedro Bautista, who will help us reflect on the effect of this COVID-19 pandemic. Well, as you see, we have heard a lot of discussions already related to COVID-19, which covered different areas for conversations, political, social, economics, etc. Yet, more than anything, the COVID-19 pandemic is also a very spiritual issue, with some considering it as a crisis of faith. But just like an ordinary crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic could also be considered both as a threat and also an opportunity. And so, to help us reflect on this issue, we will be hearing on the reflections of our friars working on the front line, responding into this pandemic. And so, here with us today, and we would like to talk to my co-host also this session, no other than Friar Angel Cortez, OFM, our OFM JPIC coordinator here in the Philippines, and also of the General Curia. Yes, Angel, hello.
Good day to
Hello,
our
Angel.
listeners. Yes, good day, Dexter.
Okay.
Good day to our distinguished guests and to all our viewers this afternoon for this Faith Chat conversation. So, allow me to introduce to everybody our distinguished panel of friars. As you've mentioned, they're working in the front lines. The first one is I am friar and a candidate for diaconate. Uh, he is a member of San Jose ang Tagapagtanggol community in Quezon City in the Philippines. He is also a JPIC animator. Let us welcome Friar Markil Yonko.
Yes,
And
hello,
then,
Mark.
hi, Mark.
Yes, say
Hi.
hi, Mark.
Hi. Hi, Mark.
Yes, good afternoon, Kuya Angel, and to all the brothers.
Yeah. And our next guest is he's he's really used to work for this kind of ministry. Uh, for some time, he's the coordinator of the Franciscan Inter-Franciscan Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation movement in the Philippines, and now currently the parish priest of Saint Clair Parish in Nabotas, one of the rural areas here in the Philippines. Let us welcome Friar Joel Suse, OFM.
Good day, everyone, and greetings to the brothers. Buongiorno a tutti.
Thank you, Friar Joel. And last but not the least, we're very fortunate to have a special guest in this Faith Chat conversation. He hails from South Korea and currently the assistant of the JPIC Animator in Rome. He's a climate change activist and advocate, and also in the humanitarian work. Friends, let us welcome Friar Rufino Lim OFM.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm quite honored to be here. I'm just like Angelito said, I'm the assistant in the JPIC General Office in the Courier of the Order. Um, um, I don't know. I'd like to hear more about the stories of the people on the ground. Um, I'm I'm really quite excited to learn from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Rufino. So, Dexter, we have very good friars who are with us this afternoon, and we will grab this opportunity to listen to their stories and also to really learn from them.
Yes. Thank you, Angel, for presenting our guest for today. And as I have mentioned earlier, this pandemic crisis is something that is new to all of us. I know for sure that you are exposed also to a lot of relief operations that would respond to different calamities like typhoon, earthquake, even worse, for example, here in the southern part of the Philippines. But as Secretary of the AMRSP, how can you describe your experience of responding to this pandemic and how unique is it exactly? Angel?
Well, um, it's really hard to explain. I've been working for this for almost 3 years. I experienced typhoon, I experienced volcano eruption, I experienced fire and other natural catastrophe. But this pandemic is really a different one. I would say it's the hardest among the the mission that I am facing, because for me it's not only uh, a trial of health situation, but it's a trial on how are we going to look at humanity as a whole. There are a lot of poor people here in the Philippines, and every time I go to the slums, to the rural areas, they are chanting the same cry over and over again that they are now hungry. At first, in the first wave, 2 weeks is okay. When we give relief and cash in, they're happy. But after almost 2 months, it's quite different. It's like people are really hungry, and they said they will not die because of COVID-19. They will die because of hunger. And when I go there, sometimes when we distribute food, they will say, can I have another one, because the last time I've eaten is last week. But there are also people who will tell, okay, just give it to others because I have already got one. But to tell you honestly, it's a test of faith. It's a test of my stamina, and it's also a test of patience, because you're really waiting for generous people to give, that you will sustain all the programs that we have here in the province. But in reality, it's a test of how am I going to be a living witness of me being a religious and being a Franciscan.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I would say that one very striking image of how the church responded to this COVID-19 pandemic is the image of our Holy Father himself when he prayed for the whole world during his Urbi et Orbi message. And if you remember, one of the things which he said during that time is that, like the disciples, he likened our crisis into that storm which once hit the disciples during that time. And he said this: we were caught off guard by an unexpected turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed, all of us called to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. In need of comforting the other. Now, you being working also in the front line, what exactly do you think that one aspect that you would need to really address, especially during this time?
It's really different when you're helping and when you are with your brothers. I mean, I've been working for a long time, and I can work with other congregation. I can work with the diocesan, with the lay people. But when you work with your brother Franciscans, it's different. It's a celebration of our spirituality. In fact, I was really emotional when we first went out because it's really amazing seeing your brothers being with you. Not because you are not being together in the community, but you know that you will go there in the storm that the Pope is telling us, not being alone. I was really emotional when I saw Pope Francis, going out the piazza, rendering the blessing alone. My tears are flowing because for a long time people are with the Pope. But for that very moment, I know the people are with the Pope, praying for him and him praying for the world. And it's the same feeling. It's like before I can do my ministry alone. But with this pandemic, it strengthened the bonds of the brother being together in the ministry, and they understand our JPIC work. And I really owe this experience with my brothers in the community, not only one single moment, but every day.
Okay, now we'll listen to another brother who is also working on the front line, particularly in St. Clair Parish in Malabon, Navotas. So, again, hello, Joel.
Hi, hi, Dex, and of course the rest of the brothers. Thank you for giving us this opportunity and for us to be able to share our experience because of this crisis.
So, can you please describe to us what would be some of the difficulties that you experience in your area, and how did the parish responded to it?
Maybe before I share Dex about these realities, I would like to situate our viewers where St. Clair of Assisi Parish is located, and basically what's within the community, not just as faithful followers, but at the same time the community in general. This parish was elevated as a parish just last year, and we have been here as Franciscans doing the missions, including yourself as a student before. And 10 years ago, we started this mission during the time of the then Bishop Iniges. And we started our presence in the community here. And it has been a very wonderful experience for everyone, even in the context of formation. Our parish here is composed of two barangays, big barangays, and we are part of Malabon City, and at the same time part also of Nabota City. And there are two barangays where we are serving: the North Bay Boulevard South, and of course the barangay of Lungos. And just to tell you some sort of a characteristic of these communities, first is that these communities are densely populated. No, in one household, for example, there are like three families being taken into this into this abode. No, another characteristic is that many of the families here are actually coming from the provinces, and they come here to Manila for a promised living, for a better economic opportunity. And then we also have another, the average family members here are five. And most of the families, the most striking one is that they are poor. Many of them are factory workers, drivers, batillos or workers in the port area. No, they are laborers. We also have construction workers and a very few white collar job workers. So in terms of population, for example, no, just to give you again a very good statistic, in Malabon area alone, where our parish is serving, it consists of 17,000 plus population. In North Bay Boulevard South, uh, it has 24,791 population. In other words, we are serving to more than 40,000, parishioners. In terms of households, in Barangay and BBS, we have 5,000 plus. And in Malabon area, we are serving to 4,665 households. And that totals to closely 10,000 households. But our new profile, I should say thanks to this COVID-19, because we were able to get a new profile, no? A very distinct and very truthful one because of the help of our volunteers, our youth volunteers, as well as the BEC leaders. And to think that we are also serving to many undocumented family settlers. So, for example, during this COVID-19, in terms of our operations, we were able to reach close to more than 16,000 families. You can just imagine. And we were all surprised by the same, primarily because they are staying in one household with three or four or five families within each household. So from here, as a Franciscan brother, as a Franciscan pastor, or ourselves as a Franciscan team in this impoverished parish of St. Clair, Dexter, are you there? No? Like many others who have experienced crisis, what came first into my mind was, how can I feed or how can we feed these 16,000 families in our parish in these difficult times? And kind of very impossible to reach all of them. But of course, St. Clair had been a very good help to us. That's why she paved a way for us to be able to find a way in order to sustain the needs of the communities here. And I should say that it was through our prayers and the prayers of our communities, as you might have been praying, you've been praying for us. There was like some sort of a miracle that happened to us. It is some sort of a multiplication of the loaves. Maybe our Holy Father Francis and Mother Clare, being an epitome of the grace of the Eucharist, interceded for us. And so our parish is very grateful, for example, for having been chosen as a pilot area of the Damayan project of Caritas Manila. It was kind of a surprise to us because you can just imagine, out of the many parishes, for example, in the metropolis, our parish was chosen as one of the pilot areas of the Damayan project. And thanks to Caritas Manila, maybe Bishop Ambo interceded for us as well to recommend our parish in some sort as a pilot area. There were four parishes actually in Metro Manila. The one in Addition Hills, Cruz Naligas, which was also our former community, and then Baseco area, which is very famous in the diocese of the Archdiocese of Manila, and of course our parish, and of course, through the help of Caritas Damayan, and they were the first ones who responded to our call for intervention. We were able, can just imagine, to distribute uh, almost 11 million worth of gift certificates, and kind of very impossible. And for us, uh, it needs a grace to be able to attain this kind of, of a grace coming from God. But thanks to Ugnayan, it is composed of generous businessmen, church people, and security forces also in our government who were able to foresee the needs of the poor people who will be deeply affected by this crisis. And this generous businessman uh, was actually the prime mover for this support done through the gift certificates channeled through the different dioceses and parishes, not only in the metropolis but outside Metro Manila. And through the help of this Ognayan, and of course our ever supportive Bishop Ambo David, and the support extended to us also by our communities, specifically Santuario de San Antonio Parish and Forbes Park, and the rest of our generous benefactors whose names they said they want it anonymous. I believe that the grace of God had been manifested. No, this is like a realization that after this crisis, there is a grace-filled moment of God that will continue to abide in each and every one of us. And thanks to these gift certificates and to these packed goods given to us, and of course the support, like Angel, we're very thankful for Angel for on behalf of the major religious affairs in the Philippines, and of course our Franciscan missions through Percy and the rest, and of course the help of our provincial government of the Franciscans through Father Cielo and the rest. I should say that our experience here is an experience of difficulty in the midst of many intriguing questions of fear, of anxiety, of stress, even of security threats and the many other threats related to our health. And yet the missionary spirit of feeding the hungry in the heart of this parish here is unstoppable. So I should say that there is this manna in the desert that had been given us. So what are the challenges of this in terms of our Franciscan spirituality? No, just to
Okay, that's
cite a
good.
few
Good.
before I end my sharing. Okay, Dex.
Yes.
I guess this is
Okay,
your
good.
next question. Okay, so thank you. First is that it is good to recall in us as Franciscans of that Francis's recognition of the human person, that is the humility of incarnation. So, in the midst of this crisis, of course, we have to give due recognition to the hungry crowd, the human persons loved by no other than our Holy Father Francis and Christ. What are we to do as human persons? How can we dignify them in terms of this crisis? And
Okay.
this became like the rallying point for us as Franciscans, that we really need to respond amidst the many difficulties that we are encountering, because there is a hungry person that needs to be dignified by the help that we have. The second is that basing, of course, from the spirituality of our patron saint here, our Holy Mother Clare, the same way in her recognition of the human person, because our Holy Mother Clare, like Francis, regards human life as sacred, because again of the incarnation. She said that the greatest influence in her life is the poor Christ.
Mm.
And so, what can we do to these poor followers of Christ or Christ Himself in the midst of this crisis? How can we concretely respond to the needs of these brothers and sisters of ours who are suffering much from this crisis? I guess it is good also to recall in our spirituality that we can never underestimate the power of prayer. No, it has been mentioned by our Holy Father, mentioned as well by our Minister General and the rest of the members of the council, even by our Minister Provincial and the rest of the brothers, that this is a time wherein we need to refocus ourselves on the importance of the unity in the Eucharist. And that is why the Eucharist reminds us again of the poor Christ who suffered much for us. So therefore, if there is suffering or crisis in our midst, then definitely we have to respond, and we need to unify ourselves in our prayers. There is so much to say about our spirituality, actually, no? Like, for example, when we talk about human dignity and the mercy of God, it was through this that our Holy Father Francis was transformed and empowered and lived his life beyond the limits of his being. In other words, let these spiritual values push us, my dear brothers and our sisters who are listening to us online, to respond to the crisis at hand. We need to extend beyond the limits of our being Franciscans to our troubled world today. This is not just a local or national crisis, but this is a crisis worldwide. And this is not just a health crisis, but a spiritual crisis as well, that we need to draw our attention back to God. I guess this is God's way of reminding us of something that at times we have forgotten already. And thanks
Okay.
to our Holy Mother Claire, because we need to go back to this spirituality. When we talk also of the passion and the human dignity, Claire herself once again reminded us of the dimension of Christ's poverty on the cross. Again, the poor Christ, through our empathic co-suffering with Christ, we can come to know the deep abiding love of God. And so, as followers of Claire and Francis in our context, we need, as brothers and as sisters, to co-suffer with people in crisis. And
Okay.
so,
So,
we should not let them feel alone in their struggle. And then again, very dear to our spirituality, I guess this is one of the spiritualities that I have reflected on even in my dissertatio of the early works of the Franciscans, or in the early beginnings of the Franciscans in life in Rivo Torto, that of service to the sick and the lepers. The poor
okay.
during the time of the medieval ages were described as paupers and were objects of piety. They are people with no food and clothing, the blind, the lame, the infirm, the disabled, the leprous, the feeble, the injured, the mentally impaired, and others, including the weak. And they lack power, they lack strength, they lack wealth, or even civil liberty. And considering the situation, Francis and the first companions devoted their time and energy. They have provided richly the response that these brothers and sisters need, and these were highlighted in the writings of our Holy Father Francis. So in our
Okay.
context, for example, this is service to the parishioners. I
Yes.
guess that's all that we can deepen our understanding, and I hope we are praying that even in our context here, kind of very difficult at this point in time, and we need your prayers. But I guess we need to inculcate and show to them the proper values, themselves first, and the last ourselves. So
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you, Joel. Thank you, Joel, for your reflection. Now you mentioned about the importance of the Eucharist, and we cannot deny that in the midst of this pandemic, our experience of the Eucharist is also in the same way quite also experiencing some challenges. And so I would like to talk to one of our young friars here in the Philippines who is also working in many of our parishes. But at the same time, I would like to discuss with him the importance of social media in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. So let us listen to Mark Yonko, who is assigned in the front line in our parish in San Jose and Tagapagtanggol. And I realized that you have a very active social media ministry there. How important is social media ministry, especially in this time of pandemic?
Good afternoon, Kuya Dex, and to the brothers. I think that the social media as a new platform of doing ministry, especially in our parish, it is very helpful in a sense that it communicates, it still continue to communicate the message of evangelization to the people, especially the Eucharist, the celebration of the Eucharist. We celebrate the Holy Mass through online celebration.
Mm,
And the youth is very essential in this part because the youth in the parish is actually the one in charge of this ministry. As I always told them, it is the realization that you are the now of the church. The Soko
mm.
ministry is the now of the parish.
So it's good that you mentioned about the important role of the youth. How many young people are working there in your social media ministry?
Practically, we have six youth in charge of this ministry.
And so far,
Six
and
youth.
okay, so far, how do you assess the response of the people um, to your social media ministry, especially in the midst of the pandemic?
As we begin our social media ministry, now we have 5,000 followers. Just imagine,
Okay,
we
that's
just
good.
started we just started last March, and I think it is very good in the sense that the people are now appreciating this kind of medium of evangelization because they know that the church is doing something like the
Mm.
continuous celebration of the sacrament and of course the church in action. They see that outside the celebration of the Eucharist, they see that the parish is still working outside through our acts of corporal acts of mercy, doing charitable works with the people, and we can communicate that to the parishioner, their help, their generosity through online. No, we show to them that this is the things that you give to us, and this is the people benefit from your help through the parish. So see, and God's grace, the parishioners and other groups like in our AMRSP, JPIC, they continue to send our help because they see online, that the parish is doing something good to the people. And that is
Well,
through the help of the social media ministry because they are the one creatively posting it to the social media.
well, it's good that we have some very young people really active in this ministry. But for sure, you may also have heard some critiques. Like, for example, are there some people also asking, "Oh, you shouldn't be bragging about the relief operations, or this works of charity must always be done only in private, quietly. Why do you post it on social media?" So those people who are asking those questions, what will be your usual response?
We just show it for the sake of transparency
Good.
because people are asking. No, people are asking, especially those who give. They will ask, of course, like some donate donors from the the diocese, they are very particular that we need to have a proper documentation. And the instruction given to us is we need to take pictures, we need to have a proper document. So for the sake of transparency, even though it is, of course, no, we know that we should not post, we do not brag about our charitable acts, but for the sake of transparency and honesty, we need to do this. And for people also to realize that the church is doing something, that the church is actually as also acting as a frontliner now, no, and this is our also new way of evangelizing people, that through social media we are posting this charity also to challenge other people in the church to give their time, their talent, and continue to share their resources to us, because as I always said, as our lesser brother and sister. So for the sake of transparency, we need to do that.
Okay, that's very good to hear. Just one last final question. Bishop Abilio, the Archbishop of Manila, has this to say that online religious service are here to stay, especially even after this pandemic. This pandemic is practically changing our way of doing things here in the church. How do you see the church, also particularly in your area, after this pandemic?
Last week practically we have this meeting. Are we going to continue? Because the problem is we don't have this what we call
Mm.
financial capacity to continue this one. Because of many utilitical expenses. But the youth are very aggressive as they want to be involved in the church. They said that this new platform is actually a new way of engaging, attracting new youth to become more involved in the church. So I think we need to continue this one because this is the new way, this is our new platform of doing evangelization to the people. So I think we need to continue it. And it's God's grace, even though we have these financial difficulties, I
Yes.
am very honest to them that we are facing this one. They are also the youth are now asking their friends to help us to sustain this ministry. They are the one
Ah,
looking for
nice.
funds. Yes, and I'm very, it is God's grace because if you become true honest to them, they will also help. And people now are starting to give some monetary assistance to us to continue this ministry because as I always told them, this is not part of our budget, but it is part of our ministry. So it's God's grace. Now, no, the budget is actually some donors, some benefactors are pledging, or we will be the one continuously to continue this kind of ministry. We will pledge rice, we will pledge this for the continued from the continued uh, for the continuity of this program. No, so I think this would be a good way also as we started. We will not end this kind of evangelization and ministry to the people. No, yun lamang po.
So we're very happy to hear that. And just for this information of those who are listening, their social media page covers their daily masses, even their morning and evening prayers, their holy hour
Yes.
devotions, even prayers for all those who are sick. So practically it's a church online. And as I have said, maybe this is one feature of the church that is here to stay. Now, thank you, Mark. I'll get back to you later. Now, I would like to ask Rufino. No, now this time from Rome. As I have mentioned, this pandemic is changing our vision of the church. May I just quote what Pope Francis mentioned in his Urbi et Orbi? He said this, that in this storm, the facade of those stereotypes with which we camouflage our egos, always worrying about our image, has fallen away, uncovering once more that blessed common belonging of which we cannot be deprived, our belonging as brothers and sisters. Practically, that sounds like speaking of our common home, and in fact, later on, he told something about the importance of Laudato Si in these modern times. Now, how do you see this crisis affecting our vision of the church?
I'm not a theologian. I'm sorry. honestly speaking. But as a friar, as a believer, as a member of the Catholic Church, my first impression from this pandemic crisis is that there is something wrong. There is because there was something wrong in this world or in the current system in the world, so-called business as usual. This pandemic happened, and at first it was the small epidemic, but because of the failure in the system, so-called business as usual, this epidemic has become a pandemic. And the same question we can put in our religious life or the life in the church. So we can call it like business as usual in the church. This pandemic crisis, this crisis also challenges our business as usual. I'm very much touched by the sharings of those two brothers, Joel and Mark. I really appreciate their stories. It's so wonderful, and I'm deeply moved by those experiences. It shows all of us that even though due to the pandemic, the social relationship was cut off, it was disconnected, but there is new connection, a culture of connection or solidarity is emerging. So that's really encouraging sign. But just imagine that, all those photos we can see on the web, in the internet, the empty city center of New York, or here in Rome, the whole city is blocked, has been blocked for 2 months here in Rome. So what can church do? And just like you asked me, what's the nature of the church? What's the essence of it? What's the life in the church in this crisis of disconnection and the failure of business as usual, failure of normal government, governance system. So just like Mark said, and so many other friars shared with us, there are online masses going on, but we need to think quite more profoundly about the role of the religion in general, and also the role of the church, and lastly, the role of Franciscans. So the important thing is we should reflect on our business as usual as, two sacrament-centered lifestyle, or our imagination is kind of contained in only sacramental dimension of the life in the church. But we should kind of review our business as usual and try out more possibilities. Just like Mark shared, new platform of connection, new platform for solidarity and fraternity in the end. But we shouldn't be afraid of new methods, new methodology to realize our Franciscan values of fraternity, equality, solidarity, and so on. And also I'm a little bit frustrated. Sorry, I'm a little bit being too long. Just one thing I'd like to add up. Sure. Is that here in Europe, I don't know, maybe here in Italy, I feel like the friars are a little bit reluctant to look at this crisis as a result of our, crisis in environmental crisis or climate crisis. They don't want to look at the real cause of this crisis, I mean the scientific dimension of this crisis, that's really huge, how to say, shortcoming in the order. If any friar doesn't want to look at this side, doesn't want to understand the whole picture of this behind this pandemic, he will fail to reinterpret the gospel to deal with the current pandemic crisis. That's the last thing I'd like to share, and that's the thing that we should work more to deal with this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rufino. I totally agree with you. We are also working for climate justice here in the Philippines. And our common reflection is that if we can only give a similar response like what we are doing now to the COVID-19 pandemic, now this time in light of the climate change crisis, then that will really spell a lot of difference in how we view things. Now we only have a very few minutes left, but we really would like to share this short video which we found on the social media, which I guess would really encapsulate what we have been talking about. So maybe we can share that video to our viewers. The title of this video is The Great Realization.
Boy, you're growing weary, sleepy thoughts about your head.
Please, that one's my favorite. I promise just once more.
Okay, snuggle down, my boy, though I know you know full well. The story starts before then, in a world I once would dwell. It was a world of waste and wonder, of poverty and plenty, back before we understood why hindsight's 2020. You see, the people came up with companies to trade across all lands, but they swelled and got much bigger than we ever could have planned. We'd always had our wants, but now it got so quick. You could have anything you dreamed of in a day, and with a click. We noticed families had stopped talking. That's not to say they never spoke, but the meaning must have melted, and the work-life balance broke. And the children's eyes grew squarer, and every toddler had a phone. They filtered out the imperfections, but amidst the noise, they felt alone. And every day the skies grew thicker, till you couldn't see the stars. So we flew in planes to find them, while down below, we filled our cars. We'd drive around all day in circles. We'd forgotten how to run. We swapped the grass for tarmac, shrunk the parks till there were none. We filled the sea with plastic, because our waste was never capped, until each day when you went fishing, you'd pull them out, already wrapped. And while we drank and smoked and gambled, our leaders taught us why. It's best to not upset the lobbies. More convenient to die. But then in 2020, a new virus came our way. The governments reacted and told us all to hide away. But while we all were hidden, amidst the fear, and all the while, the people dusted off their instincts. They remembered how to smile. They started clapping to say thank you, and calling up their mums. And while the car keys gathered dust, they would look forward to their runs. And with the skies less full of voyagers, the earth began to breathe, and the beaches bore new wildlife that scuttled off into the seas. Some people started dancing. Some were singing. Some were baking. We'd grown so used to bad news, but some good news was in the making. And so when we found the cure and were allowed to go outside, we all preferred the world we found to the one we'd left behind. Old habits became extinct, and they made way for the new. And every simple act of kindness was now given its due.
But why did it take a virus to bring the people back together?
Well, sometimes you've got to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better. Now lie down and dream of tomorrow, and all the things that we can do, And who knows, if you dream hard enough, maybe some of them will come true. We now call it the Great Realization. And yes, since then there have been many. But that's the story of how it started and why hindsight's 2020.
Because if you look at the camera, they know someone's filming it
Exactly.
because they can see you.
Exactly. If you look at the camera, they know someone's filming it. Okay, lie back down.
Wait, can I just practice right now?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
His uh, final words and his great realization of this conversation we had. Yes, Angel, what is your great realization after this conversation?
Experience this pandemic just to have realization of all the things we did in the past just to undo it and learn. I think this pandemic is teaching us not only to rely on the mercy of God and to take care for our common home, but especially to really look at humanity in general, that there's a need for us to reach out. There's a need for us to help others, to be with others. You know, my greatest fear, even watching that video clip, is after this pandemic, people will not learn how to take care of others because we are used to that distancing. But this conversation, as I listen to my brothers, challenged me to, to give more, not only for the order, for the church, but to those people who are really in need. I remember the time when Pope Francis was elected, he was reminded by Cardinal Humes, do not forget the poor. In this time of pandemic, that's the same thing that I want to hear and to remind all the people listening to this live. Please, in this pandemic, do not forget the poor.
Thank you for that message, Angel. And I guess all our listeners also have the same realization. And our only wish and prayer is that after this pandemic, we will finally learn our lesson. Sometimes we need to get sick in order to get better. And so let us close this sharing, this faith chat with a prayer. And we ask our brother Angel to lead us in that final prayer. Angel?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty and ever living God, we thank you for this opportunity to share our stories. We thank you for the gift of the brotherhood, for the gift of those people who are supporting our ministries, especially in this time of pandemic. We ask you, Lord, to guide us in our daily life, especially in this moment that we really need you. We ask you, Lord, to bless all the people around us, especially the poor, the marginalized, the least, the lost, and the last. We ask you, Lord, to bless all those who are sick, especially affected by this virus. We ask you, Lord, to bless all the medical frontliners, the doctors, the nurses, the volunteers, and all people who are working hand in hand to have a better world in this time. And most especially, Lord, teach us how to be open and generous. Teach us to be a blessing, a channel of your mercy to others. And we ask you, Lord, to guide us along the way, especially the darkest times. We know, Lord, this is not yet the peak, but we know, Lord, that you are there guiding us along the way. And we bring you back all the glory and honor together with Mary, our mother, with Saint Francis, Saint Clare, and all the saints praying for us. Amen. In the name of
Amen.
the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So again, we thank all our listeners in this Faith Chat conversation about the COVID-19 pandemic. We thank all our guests, our brothers who are working in the front line. And we hope that you could also join us once again when we will have the same faith conversation. And hopefully, we will be, that will already be in a much better time. God bless you all, and may all our works be for the greater glory of God.